TV have a white balance? Yes, no? Everybody good? All right. First of all, I want to thank you all for turning out today. Last night, my wife's car was low on gas, so I went to fill it up. Even with the discount from the bonds, we paid more than $6 a gallon, paid more than $100 to fill up a small tank of gas. It's the same experience people are having across the country. But at the same time, when you turn on the TV, you watch war in Ukraine, the advancement of Putin, murdering young children. And you're wondering, how does this location affect the world? From our gas price to what we can produce, to almost every product that needs oil, to what's happening in Ukraine today. And it all stems by bad policy. And everything that's taken place took place just a few years ago. You know, some of the greatest production we have in this country is right here in Kern County. God has blessed us. And we do it in an environmentally sound way. But ever since Gavin Newsom has become governor, his role of not providing the permits, more than 1,000 permits sit on his desk. So what does that mean? It means California, since he's been governor, has lowered production by 20%. That's 89,000 barrels a day. But you still need the crude oil. So where do you get it? He's replaced it through the time from Russia, getting 50,000 barrels a day. So what does that mean? Instead of more jobs being produced in California, Putin is getting our money. And what is he doing with it? Even worse, he has not changed course since this action took place. What could he do to help solve? Stop taking Russian oil. Stop producing it more in California. If you care about the environment, as all of us do, American natural gas is 41% cleaner than Russian natural gas. So what would that entail? More people working, paying taxes, gasoline price lower. Inflation would come down. Why? Because crude is used not just for our tanks, but for almost everything we produce. Now we have a president making the same mistake. All of this can change. We should become not just energy independent in America, we should be dominant. God has blessed us with the ability to do that. In doing so, America will be stronger and the world will be safer. The price of fuel will be lower, our products would cost less, we'll make more in America, be less dependent on everything around the world, and the world will be safer for it. Behind me, you see a lot of different faces. They look like the people you work with in everyday community here in Bakersfield. Why? Because that's exactly who they are. They come from different walks of life, but they have one common denominator. Energy has been very good to their family because they work hard. They get a good pay. They come from other occupations, but they came here. The struggle is there'd be many more. Just in this field alone, they have spent more than $1 million and waited more than 3 years for a permit from Sacramento to be able to produce more. Simply how to deal with the water that brings up. Common sense solution, but a liberal Democrat philosophy to stop the production of oil. We've watched in the debate for the presidency that Joe Biden told us that he was going to try to stop production. His first day in office, what did he do? He stopped a pipeline. But when he met with Putin, he provided them a pipeline. Time after time, they have stopped the innovation, the investment, so we could produce our own and become energy independent. This has got to change. We need people to join with us. If you care about the environment, you want an environmentally sound way to do it, produce it in America. If you care about where the price is today, you want to keep more of what you earn. The new study came out just with inflation and the price of oil where it is today. It's going to cost families $6,000 more with President Biden in office because of his policies. But now we're watching the atrocities in Ukraine. There's not one Californian that would want to give their money to Putin. But because of the decisions in Sacramento, that's what we have been doing. Instead of providing money right here in California for Californian jobs and making California be able to produce more and lower our prices. You know, today I have a lot of experts, a lot of people that work in the industry, a lot of people from a standpoint, one of the most unique individuals we have, and I think one of our greatest treasures, is the mayor of Taft, Dave Noor. He's a treasure because he serves in government not for any money, but to give back. He could do so much more, but he literally comes from this occupation. Starting at the lowest level, working hard, and he understands it almost better than anyone because he understands it from both sides. And he's not shy to explain it to anyone. I'm very proud to introduce our mayor of Taft, Dave Noor. Come on up.
Current cost of a gallon of gas has brought this discussion to the forefront, but the struggle that we have had in the state of California to produce our God-given resources for Californians for a critical aspect of everyday life has been going on for years. Gavin Newsom has exacerbated that issue. We are one of 58 counties in the state of California. We represent 2.5% of the state's population, yet, in spite of that, we produce over 70% of all the oil produced in California, about 70% of the natural gas, close to 60% of the renewables in the state of California. We are that cornucopia. If anybody in the state of California understands the proper integration of all energy sources into an infrastructure, it's Kern County, California. We have written the book on it. If we're doing all the heavy lifting, that means there's a lot of counties out there that are not. They're riding on our backs. But you know what? We're okay with that. We've been doing the heavy lifting for energy in the state of California for over 100 years, and we are very, very good at it. As far as safety, as far as human rights, nobody can touch it. These guys behind us go through training day in and day out, week in and week out. George over there is safety training and safety for GPS, constantly worried about their welfare, the environment's welfare, and still able to get those resources to market for the good of all mankind. In California, our population is about 39 million people. Currently, under Gavin Newsom, about 36% of that population lives close to or below the poverty level. 14 million Californians. The policies coming out of Sacramento, this rush to green, is going to be paid for with discretionary dollars. Discretionary dollars that group of Californians quite simply don't have. That's not the group of Californians that spends their weekends going to parking lots looking at shiny new battery-powered cars. That's a group of Californians that work hard every day and have to make a decision about whether or not to put gas in the car, to put shoes on the kids' feet, to pay the utility bills, or to put food on the table. Gavin Newsom's policies to keep us from producing our oil produces poverty. That's what we're good at right now under Gavin Newsom. We are exacerbating the wage discrepancy. Everything that is wrong and was wrong before the pandemic is even worse right now. America needs America's oil. California needs California's oil. If you want to look at how big a part does the state play in this, I left, as a matter of fact, I have a house in Bullhead City. I'll give you a quick story. I left Taft, California, surrounded by 10,000 oil wells. Diesel was $4.45 a gallon that day that I left. This was a couple weeks ago. I went through Needles, California, on I-40. It was $6.99.9. I crossed the river 2 miles later, $4.56 at the end of the street in Bullhead City where I lived, $3.39.9. Why is that? They don't produce oil in Arizona. They don't refine oil in Arizona, and they don't steam Saudi Arabian super tankers up the Colorado River. That is the cost of California. That is the Sacramento surcharge. That's fines, fees, and infrastructure. That's agreements. That's the problem. It's not a direct correlation between the cost of a barrel of oil and a gallon of gas. That is government intervention at its purest form. That's the indifference of a governor and Cal Jim to the plight of the bulk of the people in the state of California. If you're not a part of the Bay Area Billionaires Boys Club and you don't have unlimited discretionary income, you're a victim of these policies. These policies have to change. People in California deserve what is right. They deserve Californian oil produced and energy produced by Californians for Californians to fund everything that Californians depend on. We can do that right here, and we can do it better. Right now I'm going to introduce Mike Gooding, the president of San Joaquin Facilities Management. That's where we are today. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming, Kevin. Thanks. We just appreciate your support very much. And what I think I want to say is we have a national security issue, a serious national security issue, because of the crude oil we're importing in this country. And then one thing I would add to that is California has a exacerbated security issue. You know, we only produce, we're down to like almost, a little less than 400,000 barrels a day. We still use 1.8 million barrels. It makes absolutely no sense to bring that oil from foreign countries, countries which destroy rainforests, which have women's rights issues, they're not positive and stuff. Well, we can do it right here. All these talented individuals, we can produce more oil. We can assist in this situation to resolve this problem. And we've got to solve this. It's a serious national security issue. Time is of the essence. We can't do this anymore. We've got to step up and fix this problem. And I would say, a lot of our people think that, crude oil production just goes to, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel. But there's a lot of other serious stuff. Like the majority of this oil on this property right here goes to asphalts. We're still going to drive on roads. We still need asphalts to make this work. We use ink oils. All the packaging you see on like Costco boxes, things like that. It's from oils produced on this very least right here. Transform oils. Our refinery gets, they get calls when there's a hurricane hits and destroys miles of electric and transmission line. They need more transformer oils. Heck, even a windmill needs lube oils. I mean, at the end of the day. So we are here. We can help. Plastics is another thing. All plastics in car. Every tire basically has like 6.5 gallons of crude oil in it, and you need that to make an automobile tire. This is the kind of things that's not going away. So I would just say we're here to help. We can help. We can be better, and we'll do whatever we can. Kevin, we got your back. We'll do whatever we can to make this happen. So I just appreciate all you guys. I appreciate every one of you guys, because we can't do it without you guys, and I really mean that. There's a whole bunch of smart people out here that are smarter than me that make this work, so I really appreciate it. So now I'll introduce, where's Philip? Philip, come on up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Well, my name is Philip Larea. Tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in East Bakersfield. I believe this industry has saved my life for the simple reason that it's brought me and my family out of a level of poverty that and up to where we could provide things for my family, and I just couldn't find the words to tell you. But when I was 18 years old, I was implemented in this California Youth Authority program for the oil industry, and with that they found us jobs and spread us out amongst different companies in Kern County. And so once I got a taste of the oil industry and seen what it could provide for me and my family, and how many doors it opened, without a college education, it just blows me away. And I try to help any and everybody I can, and let them know that this industry here in Kern County, it helps provide for a lot of people, a lot of family, and in a lot of different circumstances that a lot of people can't imagine. And with that being said, I mean, it's just hard to explain how much what oil means to me, and I'm sure there's so many families here that could say the same thing. And if anybody has any questions after this, feel free to come up to me. With that being said, I'd like to introduce Chris Hall, President of Drilling Production Company.
Well, thank you for all coming to this very important event. I'm Chris Hall, a third-generation oil and gas producer producing here in California. And I especially want to thank Congressman McCarthy, because he and I have been talking about this problem here, and part of the issue that you face are federal rights versus states' rights, and I won't get into that. When we talk about Gavin Newsom, we talk about states' rights. But we've just experienced what I would describe as a paradigm shift with the war in Ukraine. It's changed the whole dynamic. It changes how you look at what has happened. I mean, we've talked locally about the issues of energy independence. We've talked about supplies of foreign tanker crude coming into California, of which many of us didn't realize until last week that 50,000 barrels a day of Russian crude was coming in. That's now been stopped. We've talked about and questioned renewable sources not being able to fill the gap. Well, we know now today that they couldn't if they had to. So the paradigm shift that all of you need to, I would say, take advantage of is look at this in a new perspective. This is not just a California issue. With this meeting today, I would hope that the discussion of this issue goes national. So when they talk about problems of oil and gas production supply in the country, they're also talking about California, because we're very much of the same problem. And with our dwindling oil supply, every barrel is going to be replaced with tanker crude. It shouldn't be that way. So I'm very, very thankful that, Kevin, you're our representative to focus on these concerns, and because of their impact, not just on the state of California, but they have the potential of impacting the entire country. Now, in August, I declared that I was in the business of going out of business. Someone said I had to say that today, and I would hopeful that with a change in perspective, maybe that's not the case. And let's go do what we've got to do. Thank you.
Go, Vince Vaughn.
So I'll be brief, but this is very important. I want to emphasize a couple of points that a number of other speakers mentioned, but just look at the math. Our state, to power California, our state consumes 1.8 million barrels of oil a day. And our state produces around 370,000 barrels. So where does that difference come from? That difference comes from foreign countries. 6% of that difference comes from Russia. The majority of that of our foreign oil comes from Ecuador, Saudi Arabia, Iraq. We should not be getting our oil supply from foreign countries, countries that don't like us. We should be producing that oil right here, and we can. The governor of California has thousands of permits sitting before him that could allow our state to produce hundreds of thousands of barrels a day. That would allow our state to be energy independent. Now, I also want to emphasize the fact that our state is an energy island. Many people don't know that. And what I mean by that is that because of the lack of infrastructure, because of transportation costs, we cannot bring in oil from other states. So when other states increase their production because it makes sense for them, because they want domestic production as well, it doesn't mean that that oil comes to California. We have to produce that oil right here. These gentlemen, and right here behind me, their careers allow them to produce energy that powers our state. And so that's why it's important. It's not the fact that other states are going to increase production because they want to be energy independent. It's because California needs to do it ourselves. That's critically important. California is an energy island, and just because other states increase production doesn't mean it happens here. We can produce energy here for Californians by Californians, and that's what we need to do. Thank you very much. Shannon?
Thank you. I want to thank Congressman McCarthy for having this press conference today to bring the awareness to a higher level of what's really going on in this state about production. Some of the numbers that weren't mentioned today is in the state of California, Governor Gavin Newsom is the #1 importer of Ecuadorian oil. California imports over 51% of the Ecuadorian oil that's produced in the rainforest. If you look around us here, we're not bulldozing down the Amazon. We're not taking territory away from indigenous Indians. We're producing energy here that is safe and has a quality that is beyond any environmental policy anywhere in the world. So when you look at what we do, we actually purchase, or the governor of the state of California purchases over 50% of Ecuador's oil, and it's brought here via bunker fuel vessels over our ecosystem. Some of the other numbers that were thrown out here today, like the people behind us. We all talked about these individuals behind us that actually work on this rig. But there are, when you look at the numbers, 55% of people of color work in our oil industry. Out of that, when you look at that percentage point as well, 20% are United States military veterans. 12% are women. Women find their way into the oil industry. We work in a nonprofit that has a mentor program, and we had a young lady come through the program that was from the Navigation Center, and she was from the M Street Navigation Center, and she says, I don't read and write very well, but I can do this work. And she became a welder, and now she's providing for her family in the oil industry. And another thing, 22% of the people that work in this industry that make well above a six-figure income are second chancers. It stops recidivism. It lets people have a job, which is the greatest security that you can ever have, and a job is the greatest solution to poverty. If you talk to some of these guys behind us, or you talk to an oil field guy, there's a good chance that they've served a time in prison. I'm not saying these guys did, but there's a good chance that you will have met someone. And I'm not saying these guys, but there's a good chance that you'll meet somebody that works in the oil industry that had a second chance and an opportunity to provide for their families. And they didn't before. Whether you come from the east side or you come from Los Angeles, we employ a lot of people as a secondary supplier for the oil industry in the business that I run in the real world, other than politics. And a lot of them are second chancers, and they have the opportunity to be able to provide for their family. And that's another thing that we need to discuss. This county produces 70% of the state's oil and gas and 53% of the renewable energy. We are, like Vince said, we are the power structure of the state of California. And so it's about time that we're decently respected for that. The governor needs to step up and release our 1,000 permits. And they also need to release the 55 UIC permits that we have waiting on CalGEM's desk that have been waiting for over 4 years. So again, I want to thank Kevin for allowing this to happen today, to bring this up to an elevation that it needs to be brought up to. And we need to produce California oil here, refine it in California's refineries so that California drivers have fuel in their car, their kids have footballs to play with, and everything that we touch normally in a day, these microphones, the buttons on your shirt, they're all a petroleum byproduct. So think about that before the state of California decides to eliminate this great natural resource.
Hey, Shannon. Good morning, everyone. I'm Zach Scrivener. I'm Kern County Supervisor for the 2nd District. I serve as chairman of the board this year. Back in 2010, 2011, when I first got on the Board of Supervisors, the state was coming to Kern County to get help in achieving their climate change goals. From the Schwarzenegger administration to the Brown administration, we continue to develop renewable energy. As Shannon mentioned, we have about 50 roughly percent of all the renewable energy in the state. And we are the pathway for them to achieve their climate change goals, as I said. I would have never expected the betrayal that we've seen from the Newsom administration to come after our most important industry, and that's oil and gas. Oil and gas they are 6 out of our 10 top taxpayers, $80 million a year that goes to fund county government. That's sheriff deputies, firefighters, our parks, our animal services, you name it, oil pays for it. $100 million to our schools from the oil industry, and so once again, they continue to push for carbon capture. Well, where's that going to happen? That's going to happen in Kern County, and that's going to happen in partnership with our oil industry. But those things won't be able to occur if our industry is driven out of business, and that's exactly what the Newsom administration is trying to do. We've got 10,000 jobs, direct jobs that depend on this industry. We have many, many thousands more support jobs, ancillary jobs. And the story that Philip told, we had a meeting at the Board of Supervisors back in January of 2020. You might have remembered that. A lot of you were there. There were probably about 2,000 people that attended that. Our chambers were full. Our rotunda was full. We had to pipe the video and the audio outside in order to allow everyone to listen. We had hundreds of speakers that day, but the one that resonated with me the most was the story that Philip told when he said, "Oil saved my life." And that was something that I never forgot, because this is an industry that will allow someone with a high school education a second chance to earn $80,000 plus in this industry, where you look at the average in Kern County for wages, it's about $46,000. And I'll tell you, in the solar industry, those jobs pay about $40,000 a year. Two $40,000 a year jobs don't replace one $80,000 a year job. It doesn't work that way. And moreover, with his solar tax exclusion that Governor Newsom continues to support, that causes Kern County not to receive the tax revenue from these solar plants, costing us $20 million a year. I'll ask the governor, how on earth is green energy going to replace oil when we don't receive the same kind of tax base from these renewable energy projects that we do from the oil industry? And that tax base is how we maintain the quality of life here in Kern County. That's how we keep you safe. That's how we keep your parks in good shape. That's how we pave your roads. That's everything. Local government always does the heavy lifting, and we continue to do that in trying to find ways to diversify our economy. But what we need to have is a continued presence with the oil industry, so we can be what Kern County is, and that is the energy capital of California. But that includes all energy sectors: oil, renewable, everything on the table. We've always been supportive of that, but what we won't do is allow the governor to destroy our industry. That's why we've sued the governor, and we'll continue to fight every step of the way, because this industry is important. Regardless of what the governor says, we all know that this industry is the lifeblood of Kern County, and frankly, this industry will be here for many, many years to come. It's just going to be a matter of, do we produce it here or is it imported? And we know what the answer should be. So thank you all very much. I want to introduce Steve Layton with ENB Energy. Come on up, Steve.
Thank you. I just have a couple points I'd like to make, taking off on one of the points that Senator Grove made, and it had to do with the fact that our product that we produce locally, it is a product that somehow has at one time was covertly suppressed by our state government, and now there's no covert about it. It is clear that they want to suppress our production. And why is it that we have a product that can be produced locally, can be processed locally, and it is consumed locally? I mean, what other product is there out there that wouldn't be viewed as a wonderful thing? Because it is, if anything is farm to table, it's our oil production here in Kern County. And the other point I would like to make is there is some thought that oil and renewables are in competition with one another. I don't see it that way. I think we are arm in arm with renewables. We are an industry that's embracing the use of renewable energy because we know the importance, as viewed by a lot of people, including those within the industry, that it's important that what we do in the most environmentally responsible way possible. And one of the ways we can do that is to embrace renewable energy. And there are projects all over Kern County where oil producers are doing things to embrace the use of renewable energy or to reduce the carbon footprint. We are very much supportive of carbon sequestration project, and the industry is looking for opportunities wherever they can to bring that to the forefront. But the one thing that we can do right now, because a lot of these other things are much, much longer term, the one thing we can do right now is to remove the roadblocks that stand in the way of the folks behind me and the folks elsewhere in Kern County that are ready to go to work once the government delivers us a permit that allows us to go bring more oil out of the ground and reduce the amount that's coming in from places that it shouldn't be. And with that, I will turn it back over to us.
Thank you, Steve. one thing for all your viewers or readers to understand. How does this affect your life? It's not just the price of gas of why it's increasing because of lack of ability to produce here, refine here, and sell here. It goes to every part of your life, from your clothing to your phone to your packaging. You all need the production of crude. The sad part is, if you stop producing it here, you'll still buy it somewhere else. And who do you buy it from? Dictators that do not like our way of life, who you've now seen on a world stage of what they will do. They will murder. How do they have the resources to do it? You don't quite realize it. It's what you're paying today. None of that has to be. We could be energy independent because of what God has blessed this country with. And one of the key areas is right here in Kern County. Have you ever thought what America energy should look like? You should look like Kern County. All the above. But you can't punish one and think you'll ever be energy independent. That's the importance of why we all should act. We should produce our own, produce more jobs, lower inflation and the price to every American, but make America stronger and the world safer. With that, let's open it up for questions. Yes, ma'am.
How fast would ramping up production here domestically impact the price that we're seeing at the pump?
Well, just a lot of the price at the pump is also what they look to the future. That's why you see prices rise up if they see economy and others happening. Just the removal of those 1,000 permits, I think you'll see a drop, because they'll know what production is coming on board. But it's not just in California, because what has happened, this is a Democratic policy of trying to stop the production. If the governor took those actions, but at the exact same time the president gave us a pipeline, let us produce on federal lands. It's not as important here on federal lands, but it is across the country. And if you go to even New Mexico, they get almost 50% of their funding for their schools from that tax. So you got to think about that. Your schools, your police and sheriff departments, this is what's providing the taxes for it, not just within the jobs. So we all hurt by these policies. But we would lower the price of fuel rather rapidly, I believe, and at the same time you'll have other products being lowered as well. Yes, sir.
CalGEM says that the problem is the court challenge that's going to be brought up in a hearing next month, that they're still transitioning to becoming the lead agency. What would you say about that court challenge as a factor in?
I think CalGEM has been around a long time. They changed the name, but the responsibilities are just the same. Why do they fail now with a new governor? And more importantly, I think the world would look around and believe this is an emergency situation. This is an emergency situation when you're getting 50,000 barrels based upon your policies now from Russia because you've been shutting in here. I would take the executive orders that the governor has signed and I'd reverse those. And you know what? If you had to go to court, stand up to court, because first of all, stand up for the people of California and the people of America instead of somewhere else. Yes.
On a national level, there's about 9,000 permits that have been approved and are not being used. The Energy Secretary said back in December in the National Petroleum Council, she urged oil companies to take advantage of those leases to hire more workers, get the rig count up. Understanding that takes time, what's the status of that? Is that something that's being worked on and you think can help?
You know what's so sad? Our Secretary of Energy doesn't even know how much we produce a day or how much we need. She doesn't understand the industry. I would welcome her to come here because she's got 4,000 permits that are still sitting there. She's got 6 permits on LNG that's been sitting at the desk for no other reason. You know what the LNG, liquid natural gas? We can export it. You know who we'd export it to? Europe. You know why? Because they're getting it from Russia. You know what the second pipeline is? Is so Russia can produce more natural gas to Europe, which goes around Ukraine because the first pipeline goes through there. So stop trying to pick that it's the oil industry that you've been trying to go after and let people produce more. It's a simple supply and demand. I do not want to see America where I watched this president talk about, because Congress has held his feet to the fire and said he no longer could buy Russian oil, you know what his plan is? Is to buy it from Iran or Venezuela. Stop trading one dictator for another, and let's go to the freedom of America that can provide it here. And if you're in an emergency situation, open it up. But if someone comes just to drill, There's no guarantee that it's there. And it's not just one permit that you have to go into. It is the constant ability of the other. And the other thing this administration does that nobody sees, they go after the capital for the industry. Let me give you one prime example. If you want to know what the Democrats' policies were, they brought in every major oil CEO last year. You know what their question was? Will you promise, Ro Khanna asked this. He's one that Bernie is asking to run for president. Would you promise to produce less oil next year and be like Europe? You know what? I don't want to be like Europe. I don't want to be beholden to Putin. I want to control our own destiny. And then you watch on the Financial Services Committee. The Democrats asked the banking community, will you stop providing capital to the oil industry? Why? It's every avenue of what they're trying to go after. So for them to try to make up an excuse of an industry they don't quite understand, I would ask them to put some emergency provisions in. And let's get those leases going. Let's get those permits going that have been sitting at the desk. And let's make America stronger.
Morgan, to that point though, if those permits if there is increased production nationally, it doesn't mean that oil comes to California. As I said again, we're an energy island. So those 1,000 permits that are waiting before the governor's desk, that's oil that can be produced here in California, and now 100% of that oil stays in California and gets consumed here.
Remember, there's different gravity to oil too for what's it's used in others. The uniqueness to the land that you stand on today, there's so many reasons why you use oil. You have to quite understand that. What's produced here is refined here. You don't get that almost at other places in the country. That's unique. And if you're replacing the oil because you don't allow it to produce here, how does it come here? A pipeline is the safest way to ever move it. But if you're getting it from Ecuador, there's no pipeline. So environmentally, it's not as safe as actually producing it here, and they will not produce it in the same environmentally sound way. Other questions? All right.
I got an answer.
Please, Les.
You know, say we got thousands of permits. That's ridiculous. I'm going to tell you what happened. Our president back there, he said, okay, you got all kinds of permits, and it's on federal properties. And guess what? He won't let anybody do anything. So don't pull it back on us. It's on the president. I don't know what point you're trying to make.
He banned, when he came in office, remember what he did? He did the pipeline, and then he banned any permits on federal property. And it takes quite an amount of time. I want to thank you all for coming out. I think there's a lot of people here that'd be more than willing to do individual interviews as well. But the one thing I want to ask everybody, let's join together, not just for the sake of America, that we become stronger, but the world could become safer. Thank you. Thanks, John.